for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Oh, good evening, everybody. It is Sunday, March 31st, and welcome to episode 166 of Buds and Blue Jays. This is your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm Jesse Burrell, not joined by Riley McConnell today. The opening day fever got some people a little bit too hard, so he is not here. Like Joey Votto, he is considered day today. So instead, we are being joined by our friend Isaac Bass, who's been on an episode before, and making his debut on Buds and Blue Jays, just like Justin Turner coming in this series, is Andrew Dinh. Gentlemen, welcome you both to the show here. How are we feeling? Are we glad to have baseball back?
I mean, before you say I'm going to be filling in amicably for Riley McConnell, I think I grew out my hair a little bit. I got the front hat. I'm going to be saying some Southern slang, just like cliches that sometimes make sense, sometimes don't make sense. So you guys, don't worry. Riley McConnell is still here today.
Well, Isaac, I've never actually known Isaac to have hair. I actually didn't know it was going to look this bad. Like you can make your own guesses, but wow, you really outdid yourself with this one, buddy. So nice to see you. Baseball's back. Spent way too much time at Easter watching baseball, not talking to my aunts. Apologies. But having a good one right now. Glad we closed that one out on the last day of the weekend. It's quite nice having your best pitcher pitch the fourth game, eh?
Sure, absolutely. When Gausman can go, and especially the way Kevin Gausman looked, it does set the tone very nicely and it puts you at ease. But before we dive into this series, which was a split against the Tampa Bay Rays at the Trop, I want to give you a quick rundown of how this show is going to work. If you are new here, first of all, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notification bells as we will be going on lots throughout the season. You can follow our show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find the Buds and Blue Jays, so make sure you do that here. So how this is going to work, gentlemen, we're going to go through a quick little game recaps, give you a quick summary of what had happened throughout the course of the games. Then we're going to dive in, give our positives, our thumbs up, our thumbs down, some players that left an imprint in our mind, and we can dive deep on what this means for the future of the Toronto Blue Jays. And gentlemen, without any further ado, are you ready to dive into it?
Let's do it, baby.
Let's do it. All right, let's get into the game recaps here first. Game one, opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays. They came out with a bang. They win game one by a final score of 8-2. Jose Barrios gave up a home run to the very first batter he faced, and we were thinking, man, this could be tough. But then he settled things down, especially after the Jays went 9 up, 9 down. George Springer hit a home run in the top of the fourth to tie it, and then Kevin Biggio and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit solo shots to put the Blue Jays up 3. And they did not look back as Alejandro Kirk and Kevin Kiermaier got some runs. And Barrios battled through some trouble in the sixth inning, but was able to get through it. Trevor Richards, Nate Pearson, and Tim Meza worked 3 clean innings, and the Blue Jays began the season 1-0. Game 2, it was the Rays' turn for the 8-2 victory. The Jays took a 1-0 lead thanks to a George Springer home run. Bassett started great in this start, retiring 5 of his first 6 out via strikeouts, then ran into some trouble in the third. A single hit by pitch, an error by Bo Bichette, which then led to a grand slam for Tampa Bay, and they just added on from there. Game 3, the Rays beat the Blue Jays 5-1. Jays were scoreless after 2, and Kikuchi got the first 2 outs in the third before back-to-back base runners and then a sac fly, which led to another home run. Kikuchi would allow 2 more, including a home run to Randy Arozarena, and the Blue Jays did get a run thanks to a 2-out bloop single by Biggio, but they were only able to muster 6 hits in this game, all singles, and the defense was really subpar in the Blue Jays in this one. And then in Game 4, the game Din mentioned earlier this episode, the Jays win that game 9-2. They got off to a hot start, scoring 2 in the first. Springer and Vlad both reaching base, and Justin Turner drove him in. Jays added 2 more in the third, and thanks to home runs by Justin Turner and a Davis Schneider home run. And Kevin Gausman, as mentioned, looked real good pitching into the fifth, had 6 Ks, 12 swing and misses on only 35 swings. Mitch White, Chad Green made their season debuts, and the Blue Jays hang on for a sweat-free victory. So after this series, the Blue Jays are 2-2. We're 2 games back because the Houston Astros forgot how to play baseball and could not beat the New York Yankees, as they are 4-0 back in the division. So, gentlemen, a lot of takeaways, and I guess, Isaac, we'll turn it to you first. Was there a player you wanted to touch, or the player that caught your attention the most coming out of this series?
I know it's recency bias, but Justin Turner, and I do want to just start this off kind of by saying, Jesse, I know you were a little bit down on Justin Turner signing, and I don't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this game/series really did anything to change that, because he was playing against a low velocity pitcher, and you were worried about how he's going to hit the fastball specifically as he ages. And this guy threw max 91. So, like he can turn up against guys like the Trevor Richards of the world. But I think when we're going to start to really see him maybe slack off is going to be against high velocity guys. But you can only do what's put in front of you. And he was our MVP this game and won us the game essentially, because you don't really want to go into a bullpen situation against the Tampa Bay Rays in a really close scenario with two of our main guys down. And yeah, he was my MVP. I know it's recency. There's a few guys that I could point to. I know we're going to get to a couple more, but Justin Turner was my head turner.
Do you have thoughts on Justin Turner? Do you agree, or do you have another player you wanted to bring up that really caught your attention this series?
So first off, I'd like to ask Jesse, what was your negativity on the Justin Turner signing and why?
Well, Dan, you clearly haven't been listening to the Buds and Blue Jays podcast all offseason, but I didn't love the idea of having a 39-year-old pure designated hitter, especially with an aging roster when you kind of want to cycle guys through that DH hole. And also his numbers in April and in September last year were dreadful, particularly against high-speed pitches, which is the fastball particularly, which is usually a sign of aging. I think my bold prediction this year was Justin Turner was going to be DFA'd before the end of the season. Obviously, if he puts up series like this, that's not going to happen. He looked really good in this series, and I would love to be proven wrong. But yeah, I'm not sold on Justin Turner as a key piece here.
So don't worry, although I haven't listened to all your videos, I have listened to some. What I wanted to lead you into was, as I was just scrolling on stats as I do, I remember last night, I'm looking at runners in scoring position last year for the Jays, 587, just saying. Now, leading on into George Springer. If George Springer's good, that changes this lineup completely. I don't know where we just fell off that, we have to, it's not that we have to hold a $25 million player accountable, but we should, if a $25 million player who's like a 6'4" player, whatever, World Series MVP, is a 20 home run, 60 RBI guy with a 250 average, that changes the team. So George Springer playing well, to me, means just as much as, Vladdy playing well. That's how much better I expect him to be is about the same.
Yeah, George Springer really got the season started with a bang. And look, he's supposed to be our third best hitter behind Vlad, behind Bo. And getting a good George Springer is going to be key for this, guys. I have a little series that I want to play, and this kind of goes into with George Springer. It's only one series, and then I'm going to go in and describe a scenario. And the first one I had from this is, it's only one series, but George Springer's power is officially back. Do we agree?
Dan, I'm gonna let you. You're smirking more than me over down there. So
it's so funny because I'm so happy to see George. Why I'm smiling is because I'm gonna sound hypocritical because I just said I loved him this series, but absolutely not, because it looks like he was getting older. That's what it looked like, right? Did him falling to the ground 50 times a season? I have a fitness background kind of thing. That's not healthy, right? And having your balance when you're swinging, all of this is so important to having good swing, and he just hadn't had it for so long.
So you think it's gone?
I don't know. I don't think it's gone. It's not enough series for me, right? I think you got to be about 60
Small
games into the season. Yeah.
Especially with injuries. I think for me, last year especially, he was he seemed to have gotten injuries off and on the whole season and was always in the recovery stage of those injuries. So it's going to really come down to that. Is can he stay completely healthy? I think at this point in his career, he needs to stay completely healthy if he's going to be the George Springer we know. But even if he has a somewhat nagging injury, a slight contusion on his wrist or something, his season's pretty much, he's going to be that 250 and under kind of guy.
Yeah, that's why I do.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, good. I was just closing out. He played 156 games last year. Nobody can agree that he played 156 healthy games last year.
I would agree with that 100%. For what it's worth, guys, in terms of George Springer looking good, home runs on back-to-back days, he didn't do that a single time at all last year. And in Game 4, even when he went 0 for 4, he still had 3 balls hit 95 miles per hour or harder. All good signs from George Springer. I'm leaving this pessimistic still, I suppose, but definitely encouraged and want to see more from George Springer, especially if the power keeps going. And he had a home run off a slider. He had a -7 run value off the slider last year. First game of the year, he hits a home run off a slider. Seems fantastic for George Springer. All right, my next question here, guys. It is only one series, but Ernie Clement is a full-time player on this team. How do we think about that, guys?
I'm going to take that one. I'm going to say, yeah, for sure, especially if it means IKF doesn't. Now, granted, he had a decent day today, but like, if that's who we're going to, if that's who's fighting for third base on most days, Ernie Clement for sure. And it was great to actually see, you know, when I saw Bo Bichette be down for today, I was like, oh my God, we're screwed. But his, I don't know the exact stats on it. Maybe Jesse, you know, or you know where to find them, but like it looked like the throws that he was making to first were like double
darts,
like fast. Darts. Yeah, darts. Yeah. They were like, what is it, Tyler O'Neill, or who's the O'Neill Cruz?
The shortstop,
who's the guy?
Yeah, Dela Cruz.
Yeah. On the Pirates, and the Pirates is the guy I'm talking about. That really tall guy.
Oh, yeah.
But like it was so great to see defense, especially after the first game with Bo Bichette. First couple games. Now, I do think Bo Bichette is shortstop 90% of the days, but it just shows that Clement can play third, he can play second, he can play short, and use IKF as a pure utility guy. That's what I would like to see him as. Now, granted, that salary could have been spent in better places for just a utility guy, but I think Ernie Clement should be our everyday infielder for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you here, guys. I'm adoring what Ernie Clement did. Not only did he have a massive spring this season, he also came up. He made some unreal plays in the field, not even with the arm strength, with his range and moving up there. I also love the attitude this guy brings. When Davis Schneider hit his home run today, you hear Ernie Clement in the background going, this guy's unreal. Like, he's going to be nuts. He's going to be great for team chemistry here. I am all aboard Ernie Clement. I will say, too, I got visibly upset when I saw that Ernie Clement was not in the lineup for Game 4 today after having a monster game in Game 3. And then, I mean, I guess it's lucky Bo Bichette wasn't able to go because Ernie Clement was able to come in and put a stamp onto this game. Very good to see. I've seen enough, honestly, whether it's over IKF, whether it's even more than Kevin Biggio. Ernie Clement needs to be in this lineup every single day until he proves he can't do it otherwise.
Yeah, I remember I was just in watching spring training actually 2 weeks ago, so I got to see a lot of Ernie. That guy just looks like a ball player. Like
he's named like a ball player.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He looks like a ball player. Like, great defense, great arm, great this, great that. Like, it's like, you know, a speed never slumps situation, right? Like, I saw a stat by Keegan that like his sprint speed was just putting him in elite. Like that, plus
30
arm,
feet,
plus
30 feet per second. Fastest on the Blue Jays last year.
Well, if he's slumping, I think he's still a major league player. Like, just because that arm, glove, and speed is always going to be there. We've had guys with arms and gloves, but then they can't run or something, right? So they're just not.
It's almost like he's IKF but can hit.
It's almost like that's what someone you signed for that money would be.
And just to bring it up, our friend of our show, Jesse Turiso, said it. He thinks Ernie Clement is going to be an all-star. He's looking every bit of the part here. I don't know about you boys. When I get to the Dome to start the season, I'm looking for an Ernie Clement jersey. I'm going to wear that loud and proud this season as we go. And guys, one more. It has only been one series, but the Toronto Blue Jays might not be as good a defensive team as we think. What do we feel about that statement, boys?
Didn't lead us off here. George Springer's.
No, I think maybe we were just so good last year that it's going to seem like that much of a drop off, almost like no matter what.
Okay. It's a good point. I want to bring up a list of defensive miscues that the Blue Jays made this series. I think they were only on the books for 5 errors. Okay. Well, just real quick then. Look, Vlad threw a ball to Bassett. Bassett didn't catch it. Bo had a ball that he tried to scoop to second, didn't get it out of his glove. And Bassett then gave up the grand slam 3 pitches later. Bo had a throw to first that maybe Vlad should have scooped, but didn't. Justin Turner had 2 throwing errors, by the way, and only like 7 defensive innings at third base. George Springer didn't take best routes to some ball and right. Wes Parsons had a throwing error. Yusei Kikuchi had a throwing error. A lot of unfundamental stuff from the Toronto Blue Jays there that might have cost us in Game 2 or Game 3. Are we worried about this at all?
I feel like a lot of the guys that are creating errors, are we imagining these guys are going to even be at that position halfway through the season? Like, and I know that every game matters and stuff like that, but like, I think Ernie Clement's going to be playing a lot of third base. I think Biggio's going to be playing a lot of second base, third base. I don't know when, if we're talking about the end of the season and what matters in the playoffs, like, I don't think a lot of these guys will be playing there anyways.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Isaac?
Well, to borrow a phrase from Riley McConnell, the defense looked as lost as last year's Easter egg. And this series, and I mean, as some of the commenters saying, like, Bo Bichette is defensive liability. I mean, we know that he's a average to like he's an under average shortstop at best. But I mean, that's just something we're gonna have to accept. You know what I mean? Because this guy's in our lineup every single game. At this point, it's like, why even really concern ourselves with it when we know that Bo Bichette is the best hitter in the American League and maybe even the whole league, depending on if he can hit that 200 hits. But I don't know. I think that this is just one of those, especially at the Trop. We always seem to have trouble defensively at the Trop. And they were talking in the first game about that, like, hazelnut stuff and all the stuff that they did to their turf. And everyone was saying, like, Kiermaier was saying that the ball, it runs real slow and everything like that. So who knows if this was just a Trop thing. I'm going to chalk it up to that for the rest of them. But I think we need to accept that Bo Bichette's going to be like, he's going to have some errors. It was just an really unfortunate time because we could have gotten that out of that Edding without a grand slam and we could have ended up winning that game. But just unfortunate timing. And you'd like to see that we've made some changes from last year early on, but it's a too small a sample size for me.
I agree. Definitely something to monitor going forward, though, because we did talk about the team defense a little bit last year, and the Blue Jays pride themselves in pitching and defense. And if the defense isn't where we want it to be, then they could be in trouble. Boys, I just want to bring up some other things that really caught my attention this series. And the first notable one, guys, is how Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looked in this series. Game 1, right away, his second at bat, he drilled a home run 450 feet to dead center. I've watched so many baseball games at the Trop. I have never seen a baseball land where Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s baseball landed there. In fact, he hadn't hit a baseball that far since April of 2022. And he even almost had another one there for what it's worth. He is averaging 98.1 exit velocity off the bat. That's not his max. That's what he is averaging every time he squares up with the ball. It is very good. And I also want to bring up the plate discipline for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I saw him swing just once at that slider down and away, a pitch that really haunted Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last year. Only one time did I see him do that this year, and had 3 walks in the game today. He hasn't had 3 walks, and I think he only had 3 walk games twice all of last season. If this is the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. we are getting this season, then the Blue Jays are going to be locked in, and the MVP type hitter we know Vlad can be might be coming this year. Do you guys have a quick thought on that, or should we move on to the next player?
I mean, just quickly, they mentioned on the broadcast, I think it was his second at bat of this game, that there was 2 or 3 straight pitches that were close to being in the zone that he didn't swing at with runners in scoring position. And they mentioned something like, last year he would be trying to do way too much, and he just got on base and it ended up working out. So, like, if that's the more, and there was another interview with Hazel May before the first game or second game, I forget which one, but he was kind of just saying, like, look, I'm taking a bigger leadership role this year. Me and Bo are going to be the veterans in the locker room. Even though I don't speak as good at English, I'm going to kind of tell him what to say so he can speak for me. These are the type of things that it was either that Vladdy was going to turn into the guy that was like, I don't need to listen to anybody. Like, these batting coaches don't know what they're talking about. Kind of like last year, like, I'm going to get out in a game-winning situation in the playoffs by losing focus. Or he was going to be the guys, I'm going to take accountability, and I'm going to leave it, trust my teammates. And it looks so far like he's doing that. And with that type of Vladdy, when pitchers know that they either need to pitch to him or he's going to walk, that's a scary lineup.
That's good news for the Toronto Blue Jays. Din, did you have a thought of that, or did you have another player that caught your attention this series?
I mean, that's exactly it with Vladdy, right? I don't know how that equation didn't work out where, like, if the pitcher knows you're going to swing at anything that's in the zone, then they're going to throw you anything that's in the zone, right? Whether that's in your wheelhouse or not. So if that keeps up, obviously that's going to be a different Vladdy, because I don't think anyone didn't think he could hit the ball or square up the ball. It's all about actually, his mindset there. But no, I think we can move on to the next one for that.
All right, just a few more takeaways and some things I'm trying to track as we go along for the course of this season. The Blue Jays historically have had troubles hitting with runners in scoring position, so I decided to just keep track of how we've done each of the 3 games. Game 1, 3 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Game 2, 0 of 3. Game 3, 1 of 7. And then in today's game, we went 4 of 11. That's 8 for 30 on the series, 266 average. Seems meh, I suppose. We'll keep tabs on that going forward. And another thing I wanted to mention here is, 2 things, I suppose. First one, other home runs in this series. Cavan Biggio hit a home run. It was a wall scraper. Didn't hit it that hard, but did give the Blue Jays a go-ahead run at the time, seemed very important. Davis Schneider hit a home run today on a low fastball. Good to see because he's one of those players on the bubble here. So if he can get a home run, which he did in his only game he played, was very nice. And then Justin Turner, who we mentioned earlier. And I also want to talk about our catchers. We saw 3 games of Alejandro Kirk. We saw 1 game of Brian Serven. Kirk at the plate looked exactly the same to me. Hit a couple balls okay, a lot of soft contact. He looks pretty much exactly the same. But I want to talk about their way of throwing out base runners today. In fact, the Blue Jays went 1 of 7 throwing out base runners against the Tampa Bay Rays. And the only one we got was because Cavan Biggio made a real nice tag at second base. And honestly, the throw was late coming off that too. Something I want to keep forward to. Danny Jansen will be back at some point. But do we have a takeaway on any of those or just keep it in the memory bank and let's move on for going forward?
Data boy, you got something?
So I would say for at least like the runners in scoring position part, I remember like I was searching up through stats the other day. I think we were 28th in RBIs. So much about like being able to score is having more people on base, at least in that front. So when you're looking at just batting average, I think you have to dig a little bit deeper on those.
Of course.
Yeah, I think as far as it pertains to like I've seen 1 game too many of Serven, probably a nice dude, but I want Danny Jansen back, and I think the base running thing, Riley would know more than me about this. Like I never played catch or anything like that, so I don't know. I also don't know the average of how often base runners get thrown out. I know that the bases got bigger, so it's easier to steal bases. I don't know how much of it is the catcher's fault versus the Tampa Bay Rays are fast, and maybe it's the early season issues that, especially with like Brian Serven not really being accustomed to our pitchers yet. It might be some timing issues with that, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that yet.
Yep, just something to monitor going forward.
It's the 7 guys going. That's a problem for me, right? Because obviously they're seeing something there.
Mm-hmm. And that could come back to how the pitchers hold guys on as well. Yeah. Worth watching going forward as we get deeper into the Blue Jays season.
Serven hadn't even worked with Kikuchi, right? Did he throw to?
Mm-hmm. Apparently they did in spring training, but catchers work with everyone in spring. Yeah, it's all the same. Anyways, before we get on to the rest of the pitching and any of the pitching performances that got on here, there was one more major story that did come out of this series against Tampa Bay Rays. And guys, we got a suspension. I bet you didn't have this going on early in the season, but our relief pitcher, Genesis Cabrera, got handed down a 3-game suspension from Major League Baseball. This happened in Game 3. I think it was Caballero laid down a bunt. Justin Turner picked it up, threw it into right field, and then all of a sudden they were able to get the relay in, get him out at third base. Genesis Cabrera was doing the right play. He was backing up to throw to third base. When Caballero ran into him or something, he got awfully close to him. Genesis Cabrera, after the game, said the guy just got in my face. He said something along the lines of "What's up?" And Genesis Cabrera responds, "He got in my business." So instincts took over and he pushed him. The benches did clear. Nothing really came out of it as the guys being peacemakers, but Major League Baseball did come down and hand Genesis Cabrera a suspension. He is appealing, so we're still able to play until that process does come through. But guys, what's going on here? Do we like this? Do we have an instant reaction?
Well, in theory, it is it's a 3-game suspension, but it's kind of like a 1-game suspension, right? Like how many games with it, But you don't see that very often, where a guy really makes a first move without, people kind of pushing a little bit of shoving this and that. Edis did throw let's call a spade here, everyone. That's not good, right? I don't know why everyone after was like, no, he's not going to get suspended. I'm like, you never see that. Never see that. Right? Yeah. It's always shoving, and then the bench is clear, and maybe someone in the corner shoves someone, but straight to the face. Straight to the face, no less, right? He's kind of rock star.
I kind of dig it.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Cabrera seems like the type of dude, as soon as he first came in, it was especially the first few games, that guy would get an out. It'd be like they'd be up 6 runs. They'd be in the 7th inning. He'd get it out, and he'd be like, "Let's go!" It seems like Marcus Stroman turned up to 375 Fahrenheit. So I don't mind having one guy like that. That's kind of sick, honestly. The Yankees always seem to have 5 guys like that. So it's kind of nice that we have one that'll throw down. And like Din was saying, I think the appeal probably will go to 2, as they were saying on the broadcast too. But even if it's at 3, it's it's not that big of a deal. It's not if it would be one of the bigger guys in the bullpen, especially with our 2 main guys out, it might be a bigger deal. But I don't know. I'm not too concerned, but I think it's kind of sweet, honestly. And
yes,
yeah, and it was nice that all the boys came out and supported their team instead of, there were some laughing guys out there, but that would have been me too.
Two things. You can't. Oh, yeah, exactly. You can't replace Genesis Cabrera on the roster. So when he does get his 2-game suspension, he will be taking up a roster spot. But middle relievers sit all the time. I'm going to call it right now. They're going to try to push this off past the Yankee series, past the Astro series, even maybe past the Seattle series. And that series against the Colorado Rockies at home, that seems like the perfect time to give your middle reliever a 2-game suspension. So I'm calling that. The only other question I have out of this Genesis Cabrera suspension is, does this count as a bench clearing brawl for the Toronto Blue Jays? Because we came out with a bingo card of things we wanted to see this season, and one of them was a bench clearing brawl. Are we counting this, guys?
Wait, so the answer I think is yes, because this is what bench clearing brawls are now, if that makes sense. Right?
Sure.
Like line brawls in hockey, you could use like the Leafs situation last night, right? They had a line brawl where everyone, but nobody really like dropped their gloves. So like, no, objectively, I would say no, but like,
no
that's
punches
what it
were
is
thrown
nowadays. But that's kind of what the pinnacle of it is nowadays. You don't see line brawls from 20 years ago, and that's the same with baseball
the
and
Anderson
hockey.
Ramirez. That was like the one at the last few years, the Odor and that was last year. That was
Bill
really
Tom.
the only
that
one.
was Bill
Yeah,
Tom.
that's true. That's true.
Well,
I would say, Jesse, for the bingo card, I would say that counts as a half. If another one like that happens, you get a whole.
Actually, I want to know Jesse's opinion though. I want to know.
Yeah, personally, I don't think so.
Us. Okay,
yeah, I wanted to see some sparks
fly. You were thinking that there.
Like the bullpens ran in and stuff happened, but I don't really think I count this as a brawl. I want to see people get heated. Like, I want to see John Schneider get mad because apparently all he was doing was talking to Kevin Cash about, boy, I'm out of breath running to the dugout. And that's not, tensions aren't getting high or getting angry.
Kirk is like, me too.
I feel like Genesis thought Caballero was as mad as him. And then he went, oh no, wait. Right? Like when you accidentally like hit your brother too hard in a fight.
Right. All right. Here's a question for both of you. If we did have a legit brawl, and let's say it was Cabrera and someone else, who's the guy coming out of the bench that's throwing bombs right away on the Jays?
Oh, can I have a second?
Yeah.
Nate Pearson was my first thought because that guy could just go out and get scary.
I want it to be Kirk. The mask gets thrown off.
Guys, let's be real.
Until the fight's over.
The answer to this is Ernie Clement. He's like a frat boy still stuck in the baseball thing. Like he's gonna run out there. He's gonna try to tackle people. He'll get in that fight. He's
gonna make everyone mad at him. Put the pressure off Cabrera. That's a good teammate right there. Gotta respect that.
That's what you need. All right, boys. Well, that is it. We'll talk more about the Genesis Cabrera stuff when it does happen. I did want to touch a little bit on the starting pitchers. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but Yusei Kikuchi, Chris Bassett, and Jose Barrios, we have yet to, and I guess Kevin Gausman, we haven't really talked about any of their performances this year. Jose Barrios looked good early, had 4 strikeouts through 2. I think he ran into a little bit of trouble after the Blue Jays scored some runs. There was some more hard contact. His defense did let him down a little bit too, but was able to get out of it. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 91 pitches. Bassett struck out 5 of his first 6 outs were all via strikeout, and then the defense, and then the grand slam. I think he pitched better than his line projected. Yeah. Gausman looked fantastic today. Got so many swinging strikes on that slider. I think more than half the splitters he threw out of the zone got a swing and miss today. That is just unheard of. That is how filthy that pitch is. And Yusei Kikuchi, I was more concerned about than what John Schneider and other people were. He was missing a lot of pitches down on the arm side too. I only think I saw him throw 1, maybe 2 fastballs to the glove side of the plate. And a good hitter like Randy Arozarena knew he couldn't throw the fastball over there. And that's what happened. He squared it up. He got bailed out too. So I'm a little more concerned about Yusei Kikuchi, but the coaching staff doesn't seem to be. So take that for whatever it's worth. Out of the starting pitchers, guys, any thoughts, any takeaways?
I agree with you on the Bassett thing. Especially after the first, we were all screaming in the group chat that this umpire is just like blind on the right side. Holy, that was terrible. And then the error that leads to the grand slam. Granted, he gave up a home run regardless, but it could have been a lot less damaging than that. So I I think the Hound is going to be the same as he looked the same as he was last year. I don't see any regression coming out of him. Kikuchi, I said before the season started, I'm a little worried about that guy. But he was also, give him also some credit. Like, he was working with a new catcher. So you never know. He might be more comfortable with the Jansons and Kirks of the world, but I'm going to be the most on watch of Yusei Kikuchi.
Dan, do you have a thought?
I think I've, like, last year's pitching staff, like, earned my trust so much that I think you got to ask me, like, a month in until I really, like, have any question marks with the pitchers. Although we can't just keep losing games, obviously. I think the one who I would still have the shortest leash with would be still Kikuchi. But I don't know. I still, like, this is one of my favorite pitching staffs, like, the Jays have ever had. Like, there's just so many different players on it. And, like, as someone who's, like, a Leafs fan, and as much as everyone can just make fun of the Leafs, like, you, like, right now you notice what it feels like to have a player that you're like, oh, I might never see this again, or, like, I might not see this for 10 years. And that's Kevin Gausman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right? Like he's yeah.
Honestly, it's such a sigh of relief that Kevin Gausman came in and was able to pitch the way he did today. I think where all systems go for Kevin Gausman. Moving on to the bullpen, guys. We don't have to spend too much time on this either. I thought Nate Pearson looked good, but also bad. Like, his stuff looked good, but the location was kind of shit. Yeah, he looked like Nate Pearson is honestly the best way to say that. Honestly, yeah, it's some people on the internet were talking him up a lot more. I was actually kind of taking a step back from what I saw from Nate Pearson. He got good results, but for him, it's all about fastball command. If he's got fastball command, he could be really good, but I just haven't seen enough of it, at least not yet, throughout the spring and through his first appearances here. And some other relievers. Chad Green gave up a home run in his first appearance today. Not making much of that. Mitch White, who we talked about a lot, got 3 innings in the game today. We were talking him up a lot because his velocity was up a lot this spring, but it wasn't in this start. His velocity was back down to 94. And if Mitch White doesn't have the velocity increase and still has the walk issues, I don't think he has a long-term home on this roster. So keep tabs on that going forward. Wes Parsons, very similar stuff. He gave the Blue Jays length. He was able to give the bullpen some time to rest, I suppose, to get ready for game 3. I didn't think he looked that good, but there are some under the hood stuff for Wes Parsons, which teams seem to like. I don't know. I'm not sold on it either. I think when Romano and Swanson get back, Wes Parsons is in the minor leagues anyway. And then Trevor Richards, guys, he threw twice in this series. And I've been saying all season, the thing with Trevor Richards is that changeup is so good. He just needs to be able to throw it for strikes consistently to get the hitters guessing a little bit more. Last year, it was only about a 33% strike rate. It was over 53% in this series. So if Trevor Richards can throw that changeup for strikes, he's going to be a much more effective reliever if he's not giving up the long ball, but we will see. Guys have a thought on any of the bullpen performances, any of that, or should we
I don't know why Trevor Richards, to me, I just don't trust him. And I know that he's like...
You're not alone with that feeling, by the way.
But then you also see stuff like, oh, he was like so high in strikeouts last year. I was like, when did this happen? How did I miss this? You know,
there was 8 weeks when he could not be hit.
Yeah,
but I think it was when a few guys were down too. I might be wrong on that.
He was dynamite for a stretch. Yep.
Yeah. I'm just always like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like some like vendetta I have towards. I'm sorry, Richards, man. I'm sure it's just one of those things where I just don't trust you up there. But you know, it's good to see that he's at least doing that. Wes Parsons is one of those guys where I don't even know if he'd be picked up if he was went through waivers by anyone else. So good. Thanks for taking up some innings. Wish the best for you personally, but you're going to be a great addition in AAA.
Yeah. We'll see him again before the series is done. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm glad we're in a place where like Trevor Richards is our biggest worry in the bullpen, and it's not like just some guy who has a 6.80 ERA that like keeps getting thrown out there. I was talking to my buddy who played in the minors at one point. I was actually talking to him a couple weeks ago, and I was like, because I was asking him, I'm like, I was at spring training, and they kept talking about guys who were getting like Chris Bassett preps by like wanting to be able to throw hard by like mid-April essentially and gets geared up like that. And I was like, there's no way you did that if you're trying to make a team, right? You show up to spring and you're throwing gas. And he's like, yeah, 100%. Like you could be absolutely like gas by April, May, just because you're trying to make teams. So I cannot say that about Mitch White. I obviously have no idea, but I just think like maybe these guys are showing up trying out, not so much getting prepped for the season.
All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for our main takeaways coming out of this series. I do have a few injury updates. Romano, Swanson, Jansen, Manoah, all on the 15-day IL. All are taking different progressions getting there. Bo Bichette was scratched with neck spasms. I don't think any of us think that is serious. We're likely going to see him back in the Houston series. And Joey Votto still dealing with that ankle injury. No baseball activity yet, but he was at the Trop watching the Toronto Blue Jays. And down on the farm, guys, the Buffalo Bisons began their season. Ricky Tiedemann got the start on opening day. 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, gave up a home run to the first batter he faced. Did get 10 swing and misses on 67 pitches, including 7 on that fastball. And Spencer Horwitz, I guess, was the star of opening day. He had a home run, 421 feet. Off Will Warren, who is a notable prospect in the Yankee system. Down on the farm, we'll keep tabs on the Buffalo Bison season as they're going on. Guys, that's it. That's all I got for this episode. Is there any other takeaways, that was something we might have missed, something that might have gone through the cracks that you wanted to touch on for the opening series here?
I mean, Jesse, I just wanted to ask you quick, like, any thoughts on the Zuleta getting picked up by the Reds? Any, do you care?
Yeah, not really. It's okay. A fall from grace. He was like our 3rd best prospect going into the 2022 season, but I think he is like in his mid-20s too, and he had such a terrible year last year. And the Jays have a ton of Zuleta-esque players on the 40-man already, so I'm sure in a perfect world, he does get through. He can pitch in Buffalo, and the Blue Jays preserve some pitching depth. But I think they chose to keep Leo Jimenez over him, and that was the decision that the Blue Jays decided to go with, which after trading Espinal, does make a little bit of sense to me.
My takeaway is, how good is it to watch afternoon baseball again?
Mm-hmm.
That's the best.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah.
It feels so great. Well, glad to be back. We will be back to recap the series of the Houston Astros. Let's hope they play as bad against us as they just did against the New York Yankees. It will be a battle. The Blue Jays are continuing their road trip. 3-game series, guys. Does anyone have a prediction on how we'll do against Houston? Maybe a pick to click, a player that'll perform well? Just rapid fire. Give me a name.
I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I've been hardest on him on this podcast out of anybody. I'm going to be optimistic for him. I think he's going to continue his great play and plate discipline. And I also just think the defense as a whole this series is going to get a hell of a lot better. And I think we win the series.
Love that.
I say Kirk. I'm big on Kirk again. I completely fell off the Kirk bandwagon, but I'm so sold on like last year showing up to spring late with having a kid being such a reason why this guy fell off. Such a good hitter, such like good contact hitter. I'm picking Kirk, and I really hope the Houston Astros continue to forget how to play baseball and we win 2-1.
Yep, with you. Jays win 2-1. George Springer going back to Houston always seems to hit well there. I really like the things he's been doing off his bat, especially while he's completely healthy. I think he keeps it going. He's going to send a big one into the Crawford boxes is my pick to click. Guys, that's going to do it for our episode here today. Riley McConnell should be back on our episode next week, or later this week, I suppose, either Wednesday or Thursday to recap the Astros series. Isaac Din, thank you both for coming on here. We're going to have you both on the episodes a lot more as we get further into the season. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the games tomorrow, and let's kick some Houston butt, shall we?
Yep.
Cheers, Jesse. Thanks for having me, and maybe I'll be in an office next time.
Love that. Yeah, that's getting dark in your Kia that you're sitting over there, but we appreciate for making things work.
It's a Prius. All right, boys. Peace out.
Cheers, guys. Thank you for joining us.